Hi Steve, welcome today.
Thanks.
It's great to have you on the show. Now Steve, I haven't known you for long, just a few days, but a few days ago you're telling me that you've been in Iraq, you've been involved in the war, and also about your childhood you've mentioned to me as well. So start at the beginning about your childhood and how that led you into the war, and also the connection that you had with God or didn't want at that time.
I was raised, I had two parents. My dad is a school teacher in the Seventh-day Adventist school system. Growing up, mainly he was a principal. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, but also she worked outside of the home. I grew up in the church. I was very passionate at a young age. I went to a lot of, wherever my dad went to worked at schools is where I would attend schools. And then it was about my sophomore year in high school, I really started struggling with my faith. I started seeing a lot of, if you will, hypocrisy and duality in beliefs. And when I was a kid, I was abused as a kid. And I had kept it hidden a lot. And I had tried to make known ways, and I was just told, oh, no, you can't. You just need to keep quiet and other stuff. And so, growing up, that really impacted me. And I wanted that. I've always had that sense of justice and what's right and wrong. And so going through high school, when I was about a sophomore, I decided, you know what, I don't really want to go to college. I'd like to go into the military. I graduated when I was 17, but my parents would not sign the papers for me to enlist, so I went ahead and enrolled in college. Once in college, I really had just had enough. My biggest thing is when I pray, I just felt like God wasn't listening to me. And so I finished my freshman year, and between my freshman and sophomore year, I had a summer to really think things through, and I had told myself, all right, this is it, I'm going to go ahead and enlist. I never really got the chance. My sophomore year started, and I finally walked into the recruiter's office. And then, God always intervenes in interesting ways. And instead of active duty recruiter being on duty that day, there was only an Army Reserve recruiter. So I went ahead, and I still dragged my feet a lot because I still felt that tinge at the back of my conscience saying, do you really want to do this? And of course, I was so strong-headed. Yes, this is something I want to do. And so I pursued it, and I ended up enlisting as a chaplain assistant in the Army Reserve. That way I could go to college and finish up. It was interesting because what they tell you is not exactly what you get. It's a huge commitment. I went in to basic training, a punk. Okay, and I came out, it impacted me because at basic training, my dad was, I love my dad, but I've never really seen my dad cry. And he cried the day I graduated. And wow. I have to say, even I saw the changes in me. And I grew up quickly. Yeah. Once there, I continued to pursue just a degree in college. I had flopped around. I'd always felt the call to the ministry, but I struggled with it because I was very angry at God. Yeah. I continued in a relationship where I had lived with her beforehand, and went down the route that I knew wasn't biblical and which my parents probably would not have approved. But it's all puzzle pieces, and God brings you to a point where if you fight him, he wraps his arms around you and tells you, you're not going to fight me anymore. I want you. I've called you. I've named you as my own. And he loves you. That's right. And I went through a dark time. Being in the military, I felt like this is what I am meant to do. But then being in the military, I ran into the conflict with my faith. I never could walk away 100%. Yeah. Even though I was angry at God, I still knew that he was the God. I still knew that the Sabbath was the seventh day and was the biblical Sabbath. I still knew the truth that I was raised with, but I didn't want that truth.
So do you feel your anger came towards God because of your childhood and what you went through?
I really do, because the people that should have been there for me weren't. And I told God, even from a young age, I felt that call. Like, God, I felt in tune. Like, okay, this is my God. He's going to be there for me. And I remember even up till 5th and 6th grade, no one would listen to me. And I remember I'd crawl in with my blanket in the middle of the night and sleep next to my dad because that was the only safe place. Yeah. And I'd sneak out in the morning and go back into my bed. And I was angry because here are people that I looked up to and were in the church, but they failed me. Yeah. And I thought, I equated that is God failing me. Yeah. And so I wanted to do something to make a change, to show people, I can do something with my life,
Yes.
And I felt that. I felt that camaraderie and that belonging. Eventually, the girl that I was dating, we got married, and I got my orders for deployment, and she divorced me. Granted, there was other issues involved, but I think that she saw definitely my struggle with God and my anger, and I was a fun rebellion for her. Mm-hmm. But once we said I do, I know both of us, we both were, oh man, what did we just do? Because for me, I was angry at God, so I was continuing on to prove a point, and I know for her, I was a rebellion. I was the kid that was a good time, and God still, He wraps your arms around you and He never lets you go. I just remember one time, this was later on, and I had a roommate, and I had guns, and I had a shotgun, and I had curled up in my bathroom, and I was 19 at the time, seeing the dark side of life, and I felt totally and completely abandoned. I said, okay, God, if you want me, you got to show me. And I loaded around in the chamber, and I cleaned my weapons very, very well, as I had been trained to do, and I pulled the trigger, and nothing happened.
So you got the gun, you put
the barrel in my mouth.
You put the barrel in your mouth.
And I pulled the trigger, and nothing happened.
And nothing happened.
And I thought, again, instead of saying, okay, God, you're showing me, I thought, oh man, He's going to make me fail here. I just got angry again. But I rechecked everything, and I thought, okay, here we go again. And I pulled the trigger, and nothing happened. Yeah. And that was a dark time. Yeah. And all of a sudden, I'm there, I feel the steel in my hands, and I think, what have I come to? Yeah. And the story of the prodigal son, where he's sitting in that pig pen, where he's eating, and I'm thinking, what is going on with me? I still have the rest of my life to live. So I put that away. I remember I tossed it on the side, away on the side, and I got on my knees and I said, God, I really want you, man. I long for you, and I'm sorry. And I cried. I cried as I've never cried before. And it wasn't just my anger that was coming out. It was all the stuff I'd experienced. I mean, it just overloaded my emotions and my brain. But I just remember feeling that sense of God just holding me and just saying, I'm never going to let you go. And that text in Jeremiah, He knows the plans that He has for us, to prosper us. He never says it won't be hard. He never says that we won't fight Him. But that just was the moment that I thought, okay, I need to just let my anger go. And I just need to and it didn't change instantly. Unfortunately, we make decisions. Like for me, I smoked. And that was a tough journey. I tried to get rid of it, but when I would get stressed out with finals and just regular life, that was my habitual backup, and I felt guilty afterwards, and I struggled with that. And there was some other things that I struggled with, but I remember praying, okay, God, I'm not going to give up. You didn't give up on me. You saved me for a purpose. Now show me that. Life has been a rough road. I know that growing up in the church, a lot of people think that, you don't have a tough choice, but I believe that sometimes growing up so close to the truth, you become so immune to the truth that until you have an eye-opening experience, you don't.
Until you experience God, and that's what it is. And I was brought up in the truth as well, and we knew so much, but hadn't experienced God. And once you experience God, it's different, isn't it? Everything changes in your life.
Yeah. And once I had that experience, I remember thinking, is this the route that I want to go? Because I planned on graduating. I planned on switching over to active duty. and becoming an officer and just doing my 20 years and living life, and that was it. But God has other plans for us, and He always raps on our doors and says, "Hey son, I want you," or "Hey daughter." And I had graduated, and I was a little upset with the way things went down. I had a professor in college that, because I had been in the military, he wouldn't give me an A. He told me, "Son, you're an A student, but I'm only going to give you a C minus." And so that affected me in the long run on my transcripts and my GPA, and going through the divorce and being in the military during college and stuff. The college wasn't very understanding, and some of the anger that I had felt before kind of welled up.
Yeah.
But I remember I just muscled through, and I thought, okay, God, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be perfect. Then I was asked to join, enlist on a Special Forces contract, and so I did. And I remember that summer, I stopped doing devotions, and I thought, okay, I need to prepare myself for selection and the rest of training, and this is the life that I'm going to live and that I want to live. And so, even though we have those experiences, Satan, when he has his claws in us, I full well know, as I'm sure you probably do too, is he doesn't want to let us go. He doesn't want us to know that truth. And so that summer I struggled again with smoking. I was nervous. You hear stories and a lot of stuff, and I knew I was about to go through another changing experience. And that summer I had spent at home in Missouri with my parents. I would run 4 or 5 miles a day in the hot summer, and I remember I would just talk to God and say, "If you want me, I'm here, show me." And at that time, God, He's silent on our part, but that doesn't mean He's not working, but He was silent. And they drove me up. I went through the process, and I was sitting in a hotel room, and I was looking at my life and looking at how I'm 22, I've been divorced at 19, all the stuff I've gone through. I felt like a 40-year-old, and I remember sitting on the corner of my bed, and there was a 17-year-old looking to join the National Guard, and he was excited. He was gung-ho, "Oh, I can't wait to do this. I can't wait to blow this up," or whatever. And I'm thinking, that's not what it is, man. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, I'm telling myself that this isn't what it is, and all those, what I was raised with, that truth, all of a sudden those seeds started sprouting in my brain. I remember I tried, no, we got this, we can do this. But I got on my cell phone, and I remember I looked at the time, and it was about 8 o'clock, and that's when the experience I call started. As I sat there, and God just overwhelmed me and said, "Son, if you go down this path, you have a choice. If you go down this path, you're not coming back. You're going to run away from me. You're going to shove me aside, and I have a purpose for you. I want you." And I felt like that hand extending to me saying, "Get up and leave."
Yeah.
And I struggled with that. And I remember I called my father, and he was like, "Stick it out, see what happens, but ultimately it's your choice," which is the answer I hate, because that didn't, again, it's back to me. So I prayed some more, and I said, "Okay, God, really, really show me." And I was hoping that it was just nerves and it would go away, but no. God overwhelmed me even more and said, "Son, I want you. I need you. I love you.
That's
come to me. I don't want you to go down that route."
Yeah.
And he told me, "You know what it is. You know that route that you're going down."
Yes.
And so I got on the phone with she wasn't my wife now, but we had grown up together, and we had talked in emails and stuff. But I remember thinking, my wife's name came to me, and I thought, you know what? She's a woman that will stand by me through anything. She's already been there through thick and thin. She's seen the change I had been through. She knew about my divorce and my military experience, and I texted her. I said, "Hey, I want to get married. I want to pursue you, if you will." And 3 years she drugged me along, but from that experience, that was ultimate, where God set His hands on me and said, "This is my own. No one else can have them." And I know that we can make that choice where we can walk away, but for me, I remember that experience when God wrapped His hands around me, and through the worst experience of my life, I still remember that, and I picture those hands There's a famous painting that I showed in my chapel where God, you should see the pierced hands, and He's reaching to the water. And to me, that's me. I drowned all the time, and yet God reaches down. He says, "Hey, son, I got you.
That's right.
I want you."
If I placed a gun in your hand right now,
I wouldn't touch it.
you wouldn't. What would be your feelings?
After my military experience, I had owned weapons. I sold my shotgun to my roommate, and I had a 22 rifle, which isn't anything big, but I knew what I could do with it. And I just, it's still at my dad's house, but in the back of my head, I told myself I never want to touch another weapon again.
Yeah. So you've had a complete change of direction in your life.
And I never thought I would.
Yeah.
I never thought I would. I always saw myself as that gung-ho Charlie, that John Wayne watching.
Yeah.
I'm gonna storm, Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
I remember watching that and thinking, man, I want that pride and that belonging. But am I anti-government and anti-anything? No. But I just believe that you need to know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me because I lost a lot of friends. We were young, and a lot of good friends. I lost a friend in Afghanistan, but you look at currently what's going on, and what was the point? I mean, that's what I ask myself. The region, it's overwhelmed by terrorists, and I show my students sometimes snippets of pictures, and I'm like, you see that? That's an American Humvee, or you see that? That's an American uniform, and it's not being used for good, and it's hard to see that. But I know biblically that all this has to take place before Christ comes, and you and I have talked, and we definitely see. I think we both can agree that Christ is coming soon.
The signs are there. Every week we see different things on the news, and we know we're in the end times. And you and I, we had a chat earlier on today, and there's something profound that you said, because there's a lot of children out there that watch TV, that plays these computer games and think there's nothing wrong with computer games. And you mentioned something about being conditioned with computer games. What was that?
I remember when we were going through training that they showed us this statistic that it's easier to train the generation now to kill, to be a soldier than it was before. And I remember playing a certain video game that was really popular, and I remember I enjoyed that game, but I just remember it was set in a Humvee, and I remember I had my headphones on, and I remember it was too real. It was too real, and I remember pausing and thinking, how many people experience this and they don't realize that it's not reality? How many kids, and then I started looking in the news, and how many kids are killing grandparents, or abusing, or stealing, and all this other stuff. And I do believe that there is a link between what we play, what we view, and how we act. Now, do I enjoy rolling around with Mario and stuff? Yes, but video games today, they're so real, and to me, I see there's a hidden deception behind it. And Satan is far smarter than us, and that's the thing that you have to accept. That was no problem for me, that I'm not the top dog, that there is something going on behind the scenes. When you look at all the pain in the world, when you look at all the suffering, all the hunger, all the violence, I mean, to me, if you ask yourself, if you don't have God, it doesn't make sense. But if you have God, you understand this is what has to happen before Christ can make it all new.
That's absolutely right. That's right. So tell me about Chelsea. How did Chelsea come into your life?
Well, Chelsea is the angel. I definitely, she balances me. When we were kids, she tells me all the time, I knew that I was going to marry you. She even said that when, because we sent her family a wedding invitation for my first marriage.
Oh, wow.
And she remembers that her aunt talked to her and said, I thought you were going to marry Stephen. And she told me, I was disappointed, but, I still felt like I'm going to marry him. And she's stuck by me. She balances me out. I am a difficult, I can be stubborn, and that punk kid, he sometimes comes out, and she definitely, when she puts her hands on my shoulders, or, I'll admit sometimes I just break down emotionally, and when she wraps her arms around me, even though she's shorter than me, she is She is the rock to everything.
And God created her for you.
Yeah.
She created you for marriage.
Yeah. I would say that sometimes, though, it's hard for her to see that God created me for her. But
Well, my wife's the same. My wife is a very special person that can live with me. I'm a messed up puppy. I've gone through horrendous experiences as a child as well, and I can feel your pain because of that. And but yet God has brought special women into our lives that are stable, that can be there for us when we need them, especially through that emotional time.
And she is the rock, even going through hard times and at times, because yes, we all question and ask God, why is this happening to us, or why is this happening? And Chelsea will just listen to me, and she will say, you know what? I've heard you. God called you, and He loves you. And that to me is all I see God in my wife every day. When I know she's not perfect, nor am I, but she is that angel that guides me, that helps me.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Steve, so much for sharing your story with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'd just like to say to the viewers, we don't know what you've gone through in your life. We don't know what pain and suffering you've gone through. But maybe something in Stephen's life has touched your heart. Maybe you've been to war, maybe you've experienced this, maybe you've been abused as a child. No matter what you've gone through in your life, be sure to know that God cares.
Amen.
And He has a plan for your life. Stay with God, and I promise He'll see you through. Thank you.